Hi everyone, I'm here with Sam Wang. He's General Manager of Huawei's ADN Solutions. Sam, pleasure to see you again here in Copenhagen. We're at DTW 24.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. The TM Forum just had a release on their autonomous network level 4 blueprint. I'd like to get your take on that and some of the insights that you see out of that report.
Yes. About the level 4, the autonomous network, they bring a very new concept, levels from level 1 to level 2, level 4, level 5. So it's very new thing. It's good idea, but after 5 years, the industry, they tried a lot of the mid journey, and at now they think, okay, the future is the near future, maybe in the coming 3 to 5 years is level 4. So level 4 is very important, but the point is, what is level 4?
What is level 4?
Yeah, what does level 4 looks like? This is the question I'm asked most frequently during the past 2 years. My boss, the industry, my customers, they always ask these questions. So it's very important to define what is level 4 and what does level 4 looks like, set as a vision to the whole industry. So that's the point for the level 4 industry plan. It's a blueprint for the whole industry. So I think they will give some guidance for this. That's the main point for this level 4 industry blueprint.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, at least the work going on in the forum, is to move away from very vendor-specific interfaces and APIs to more standardized APIs. Can you give me your take just on Huawei's ADN program and where you see some of the high-value use cases as you move towards more autonomous networks?
Okay, now when we talk about level 4, we should avoid to talk about use case. The use case is most focused on level 3. You do a use case for some special tasks. But when we talk about level 4, now we talk about scenario. Okay, what is scenario? For example, the wireless network performance management is a scenario. The troubleshooting for like a backhaul network is another scenario. So that means, when we consider to build a level 4, we focus on this kind of scenario. Because, for the whole picture of the operations of carriers, they have a lot of scenarios. They have, in their whole, life cycle of the operations, they have so many scenarios. They must select some value scenarios. So right. That's the point. We cannot, cover everything. We cannot do everything, right? So now, this time in this industry blueprint, they point out some scenarios based on 2 dimensions. First one is cost. The OPEX is the biggest cost for carriers. We did some research. We found that the top 4 operations, account for 72% of the total OPEX. And so the top 4 is very important, right? And the top 3 human resource is spent. Top 3 they spent account for 78%. For the total operation team, including the outsourced team. So when we use these 2 dimensions to select the scenarios, we can find that around 15 to 20 scenarios is it's most valued.
Okay.
So this time they select this and they tell the industry, we should focus on this. This is can be the reference. It's not like the methodology. They tell you we should do these scenarios. So we think this is very important. We checked that all the scenarios. We find that most of the scenarios we can do a lot as a the vendor from the vendor perspective. We can do a lot, like the troubleshooting the maintenance operations, the optimization for the network, for wireless network, for home broadband, and this kind of scenario. And also we can do a lot of to help the carriers to improve the customer experience, like the customer complaint handling, process.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because at Appledore, we've done some of our own research around the operating expense to revenue ratio, and over the last decade, we haven't really seen much of a change. So that ratio is running somewhere between 78 and 80%.
Yeah, we see
overall.
Yeah, we saw the similar numbers, so it's
Yeah.
very high. So to reduce the OPEX is the key point. But I talked with a lot of customers, like Singtel.
Yeah.
They also mentioned, we cannot just focus on reduce the cost. We should consider to make something new to like to make growth of the revenue.
Yes.
Yeah, to make income that. A CXO from Singtel, he told me that we cannot, go rich just by saving, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
also, we need to consider to improve the user experience. If the user get better experience, they can pay more, and also we can consider, to bring some new service when we do level 4.
So just to kind of summarize, you're looking at it more in terms of scenarios. I think that's a pretty practical approach because within those scenarios, you'll have multiple use cases, and that allows you to sort of target where do we get the most bang, if you will, or most output for some of the customers that you're working with.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Sam. If I look at your business, and we're here in Copenhagen, you do a lot of business in Europe, in the Middle East, in Africa. Can you give us a sense for the customers that you're talking to? You'd mentioned Singtel, but how they're thinking about moving through the journey towards autonomous networks?
Okay. I think, of course, I talked with a lot of customers from China to Asia to Middle East to Europe and Africa. I can see that right now, the China and the European, these two regions, the carriers, they are takes leading. They go a little bit ahead of the industry. For example, like China Mobile. They made big progress. They are thinking very deeply about what is the level 4. What is level 4 for China Mobile themselves? They think they need to think about not just the process changing, not just the technology. They must do this at the same time to consider the value. So they consider the value based on what they are going to do. But they made very good progress. They do some very pioneer pilot, and at the same time, the carriers in European, they're doing well. For example, we know that in European they have 4 big T, right?
Yeah.
So at the beginning, because I think the European carriers, they have the market is stable, not like China. China carriers, they have some new business like smart cars. We have a lot of smart cars recent years. So the China carriers, they facing challenge from new business, so they try to change. Then they think, okay, we need to make a new direction. Then they think, okay, autonomous network is the new direction. So they put a lot of resource to do it. But European carriers, they're different. They have very big burden from the traditional service, because the market is stable. So they need to reform.
Yeah.
They need to make high efficiency. They need to save something to make them stronger, right? So they deeply reform their process, their team, their systems. And at the beginning, some carriers, they focus on, for example, ZTO and other things, but now they are moving to autonomous networks and use the same methodology of autonomous networks. So they are moving back very fast.
Yeah.
And I think they will take a leading to China and Europe. They will do leading this thing. And for some other regions like Middle East and Asia and South Africa, that's example. That's emerging market. They still have the population bonus, so the pressure for them is not so huge. So when they do this, they look at the industry. They found the European and China, the most advanced markets, they do this. They keep up very fast. We can see that the AIS from Thailand, they make very good experience. They make very good practice, and even the MTN in South Africa, they use autonomous network to solve the problem. They have the power shortage problem. They have the fiber broken problem. They use the practice to solve these issues. It's very efficient. So we can see different regions, they take different strategy to do.
Yeah, that is a good point because we have a highly saturated market here in Europe. So the focus obviously is around customer experience. And so you look at more of your operating efficiency.
Yes.
But in other markets like China, where there's potential for new revenue sources, the pivot may be towards revenue generation. How do you optimize getting to those markets faster? Sam, thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your time here in Copenhagen.
Yeah, okay, let's say. Thank you.